welcome to my channel. Hello, welcome to my channel, Inner Journey with Meditation. In this video, I am going to talk about part 2 of how do I meditate, how do you meditate, meditation tips and technique, part 2. In part 1, I talked about how I started meditation and got in the zone. In this video, I am going to talk about how I went on to the next level of meditation. And this is where my inner journey really began. No, scrap that. Right, okay. In this video, I am going to talk about the next phase of my meditation journey. Right, so in the first video, in part 1, I talked about getting in the zone. This was my motivation. This was my motivation for meditating. And I couldn't wait. I was always, I had to meditate every single day. I wanted to get in the zone every single day. Right, so, however, as time went on, I noticed that I got irritated with a few things. So for example, I was doing a music only meditation. I found that the music was just too loud. It was ridiculous. Even if it was a volume setting of 3, it felt too loud. So I reduced it to 2 and I reduced it to 1. Eventually, I listened to my meditation via my phone. I would put the phone far away just to get it low. And I was doing all of this because I wanted to get in the zone. I was trying to get back in the zone, if you like. And I couldn't relax enough to get in the zone when the music was too loud. So I'd push the phone far away. Eventually I stopped. I stopped listening to the music, and I would listen to, I think I had a fan in the room, just that continuous sound of, just the continuous sound of a motor running did it. But of course the problem with that was I couldn't get the volume down. After a while that sound didn't get me in the zone. After a while that didn't get me in the zone. And then I moved on to other motors around the room, like for example the bathroom the bathroom ventilator, which was even further away. It was low enough, but it was enough for me to relax and get in the zone. And then I just decided, why don't I just listen? Why don't I just meditate with nothing? No sound, no music, no guided meditation, nothing. And I did. And it was successful. I was like, oh, wow. And again, so I would go in, turn everything off, take a deep breath. I would do perhaps 5 or 6, just enough to get me relaxed, because I said in part 1 it was about relaxing and getting comfortable. So yeah, I took deep breaths enough to get me relaxed. And then what happened? I listened to nothing. Sometimes I could hear the traffic far away. But I learned to listen to the sound of silence. And this seems kind of an odd thing, but I wish I knew how to explain this. I call it the sound of silence because it just meant that when everything is completely silent, there's actually still sound. There's still some sort of sound. And some of this sound could be, imagine, or some of you that have gone swimming perhaps, or not swimming. Some of you that have gone clubbing perhaps, when you come out of the club, this was years ago. When you come out of a club and with the loud music, your ears are ringing, it sort of feels a bit blocked. And you can't hear, you can't hear the regular sound very well because it feels like your ears are blocked. Now, if you were listening to the sound of, I call it the sound of silence. It's on my website, link in the description. I call it the sound of silence because I found that I could I just was focusing on various elements of silence. It was, the room was completely silent. I wasn't listening to any meditation music. But there, I could see strings. I literally could feel strings of silence because one felt like a zigzag line. One felt it's strange, but yeah. But my point of this was, whilst focusing on these sounds of silence, the different strings and sounds of silence, around me, I then would get in the zone. So now I get in the zone via the sound of silence. Different strings, different elements in the air. Is it the air? I don't know what it is, but listen to nothing and get in the zone. That was my new motivation for meditation, and that was amazing. Shortly after that, I would muse about this sound or that sound. I never felt during meditation that my consciousness went somewhere. I never really got that. I would still consciously have thoughts with myself. There was no, my thoughts has gone there. It was okay to think. But however, what did happen was that I started to, before that happened, I mentioned in part one, I mentioned that I read a number of books. One of them was Jane Roberts. She was channeling Seth. I don't know how to do that. But I found it really interesting. I found that I could understand this book. It's actually quite a difficult book to read. The series is quite difficult, but I understood it. But before Jane Roberts, I started listening to Abraham Hicks. And Abraham Hicks just made things very simple. All of a sudden, I had an inner being. I thought, wow, I have an inner being? I'm going to do another video on what is an inner being. But my point of this session, of this particular segment, is that I was meditating and I was educating, if you like, myself. Would you call it an education or discovery? Up to you. But I was meditating and I was just listening to different people say different things, and I found myself being more spiritual, deciding or thinking to myself that, there's a spiritual side to me, discovering that I have a spiritual side to me. I was raised a Catholic. I went to church and all that stuff. But this was a different level of understanding and comprehension for me, knowing that I had a spiritual side. And therefore I thought, okay, and therefore I thought, okay, if there is one, I want to connect with my spiritual side. And the rest you can say is history, because in my meditation sessions I started to feel more sensations. I would feel more physical sensations, waves up and down my body, tingles. I would feel those. I would have, like, I paid more attention to my dreams as well. Different kind. I had more vivid dreams. I remembered them more. This was because I read Seth's book, and he said, in your dreams you can design your life. And I'm like, I'm gonna do that. I want to do that. Okay, this is about how to meditate. What I'm trying to say is, because I was listening, because I was reading about your spiritual self, and because I was meditating, the combination of both at the same time meant that I was able to connect with my inner self, with my inner soul, with my inner being, with my subconscious, if you like. Now, how do I know I connected with my subconscious? Because in one of my sessions, I got the impulse to look into my third eye. I have no idea what the third eye is. I really don't know what the third eye is. I go on the internet, and it had people had this eye, some eye there. I'm like, that's what it is. Maybe there's an eye there that I can't see. So I thought, maybe if I do that, I thought if you do that, I might be able to see. I had this impulse that there was something in my third eye. I think I will do another video that just talks specifically about the third eye. But suffice to say, I figured out how to view my third eye, and in that process, that was my connection. This was how I started to dialogue with my inner being, with my inner self, with my inner soul, with my subconscious. I'm giving them all these names because they are one and the same to me. With my spirit guide, these are, whichever name suits you best. But for this series, for this video, I like Abraham Hicks's terminology of inner being, and I'm gonna stick to that, just because I don't kind of keep repeating with mine, and I don't want to keep repeating all of that. So this was how I started my communication with my inner being. Thank you. All of a sudden I feel like I should do I'm gonna do another video on the third eye, just because I realized I could just go on and on and on. Thank you, and see you in the next video.